to file.
So again, welcome. Hopefully you've taken a couple of minutes to get settled in. It's great to be with all of you. Again, August was the last time that we were kind of all together, so it's good to be with you again. And we have a little bit of a longer meeting, I think, than that's typical for this time. So please feel free to take care of yourself. If you need to get up and stretch, if you need to, be off camera for that for a minute, whatever personal needs you have, we'll have some scheduled breaks, but please feel free to do what you need to stay present with us during our time together. Next slide, please. So if you could start off by putting your name, organization, and role in the chat. One of the other things we're going to ask you to do is to change the way that your name shows up. Change the way that your name shows up on the Zoom screen or square. And if you don't know how to do that, please let us know. So if you could add either HVAC member, guest, DCYF staff, or trio. This is going to come in handy as we make our way through most of our meeting today. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Again, if you need some help, or please let us know and we can walk through how you make the shifts and changes to your name. Oh, I'm sorry, I already saw that, Samantha. Sorry, if you could have Samantha in there too, so that we know. Sorry, that was not very clear, and that became very obvious when you changed your name to do exactly what the instructions said. So my apologies. We want your name to stay on, and then at the tail end of your name. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, oh, Emily, we lost the shared screen. Just wanted, oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm seeing that most of you have that on. I should probably do it myself. All right. Okay. All right. So if we can move on to the next slide. And for our community builder, we are going to test. Again, we're just testing all of your Zoom skills. We have not been together in a Zoom meeting since August. So I know there's been all other kinds of Zoom meetings that you've been in, but we're going to test your Zoom knowledge here a little bit more. Next slide, please, Emily. There we go. All right, so summer's come to an end, and we're gonna do a little bit of summer kind of trivia questions as our community builder. So help you transition from what you may have been doing before into kind of where we are now. So for those on the home visiting team, this may look familiar. So you are not allowed to answer. So I am excluding you from this. So what you're going to do is use the raise your hand feature. So I'm going to ask a question. If I'm done with the question, I'm going to pause. And then if you know the answer to it, raise your hand. I'm going to ask, Soraya, can you help me keep track of whose hand goes up first? So we're also going to see, we're going to test some knowledge. We'll see who's quick with the raise your hand feature. So here we go. Are you ready? Got your hands ready, hovering over that raise your hand feature. All right, next slide, please. Which country has on average the most extended summer break of 13 weeks? And here are your choices. No hands?
We all know which one it's not.
I see Nucha's hand.
I'm gonna guess France.
Oh, nope, that is not right. Allison's hand went up.
guess Italy, because who doesn't want to eat pasta and drink wine? So
And that is the right answer. I'm going to assume that means Italy, and Italy is correct. All right. All right, hands down. We're going to move on to the next one. All right, next slide, please. Excuse me. What does SPF stand for in sunscreen products? Skin protection factor, sun protection factor, sun protective factor. Oh, I see Christy's hand.
Is it C?
Yes, it is. Job, Christy.
Thank you.
Come on. All right, hands back down. Here we go. Next slide, please. What is the traditional condiment for Belgian fries? Allison.
mayonnaise.
It is. That is right. Next slide, please. Hands down. Done. Okay. Oh, looks like Gretchen's hand is up. I didn't even get a chance to read the question. Gretchen is on it. All right, Gretchen, go ahead.
B. Los
You
Angeles.
are right. Next slide, please. Next slide, Emily, please. All right. In Mamma Mia, what song do Donna's best friends sing to help cheer her up after discovering Sophie's dads are on the island? All right, Katie.
Isn't it B? I just watched this movie.
It is. It is B. I think we have one more. Next slide. I love it. All right, what does ATM stand for? Automated teller. Allison's hand is up.
I'm gonna guess A.
You are right.
Yay.
All right. I think that is it for you do. I think that's it. One more. Let me see. Next slide. I think that might be it.
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with the slides. 1 second.
It's okay. There we go. No, that was the last one. So just fun fact, I like what I consider to be like not always useful facts. My head is always full of stuff that's just random. And so things like this just kind of speak to me. So hopefully a little bit of fun. I think Allison may have been the one with the most right answers. So yay for Allison. Just thought I would do something a little bit different to get our mind shifted from where we were onto where we are going today. So with that, just go over our agenda here briefly. So should have gotten a packet with this information. So we'll have a presentation from Barnard Center, and Nucha is here. I'll do an introduction here in just a little bit. And he's gonna share some information with us about infant and child mental health. Then we have the data subcommittee proposal we'll launch into. We'll do a stretch break after that, and then we will do some planning for this state fiscal year. So doing some nominations and voting for chair and co-chair, doing a conversation around kind of our meeting schedule and meeting time, and planning for our December HVAC meeting, looking at some topics as well. And then we'll have some opportunity towards the tail end to ask any questions or clarifications around the updates that were sent out with your packet on Tuesday morning. Okay, any questions about the agenda or anything that you need clarified before we transition on? Next slide, please. All right. And so Nucha is here with us. And Nucha, I have been meaning to ask how to properly say your last name. So if you could do that for me, because I definitely do not want to butcher it in any way, shape, or form. Names are really important, and I want to honor that. So if you could kindly pronounce your last name for me, I'd appreciate it.
The correct word, the word correct is complicated because I'm Thai, and Thai language is tonal. So sometimes a correct pronunciation becomes really difficult because we might not have some of those sounds. So the Thai pronunciation is Itzro Wong.
Itzro Wong.
Yeah, it's pretty close. But you can just say Isaro Wong. You can separate it into syllables. All of that works. I'll answer to you. Actually, Nucha works the best. So that's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I appreciate your grace with that.
No problem.
And so Nucha, we are really, really excited to have you here. Nucha and Nina and I and a couple more of his colleagues had an opportunity to chat. I've actually have had several conversations, and they were sharing a lot of the work that's happening, and we just thought it would be a great opportunity for there to be information shared with HVAC for us to do some thinking. And at the beginning of our fiscal year, there are things that we could think about, opportunities for collaboration, opportunities for support. So Nucha, we are really happy to have you here and would love if you could share a little bit more about yourself before you get started, and then looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. So I have a particular, a very specific agenda in mind, which I have the presentation for the presentation today. But I'll share a little bit about myself. So I'm obviously I'm Thai. I was born in Thailand, but pretty much grew up in the Midwest in Chicago and the suburbs of Chicago. Pretty new to the Pacific Northwest. My family and I moved here in June of 2020. So professionally, I'm a social worker by training. Did the majority of my birth to 3 work in the what you all know as ESIT or Part C Early Intervention program, but started out my career as a school-based social worker for the Chicago Public Schools, primarily on the South and West side, which are predominantly Black African American and Hispanic schools. Love the work, love the kids, love the families, loved the teachers that I worked with, and hated the system. So shifted into Part C Early Intervention, where I kind of found a lot of fun rolling on the ground with the little kids, as well as working with the parents to think about their development. So I'm here at the Barnard Center as a director of the Advanced Clinical Training Program. We primarily, well, it's an intensive professional development program. It's a 15-month program. We ask about 18 hours a month throughout those 15 months, mostly virtual, but also in-person, 4 in-persons throughout the 15 months. And the goal is to build a learning community where we learn together and to challenge ourselves around conversations and addressing systemic inequities that exist both in our systems as well as potentially in our practice. And we believe that the 15 months, actually, the intensity of the 15 months is necessary for us to really integrate language, perspective, ways of knowing and understanding into the way that we are with families. And we've had some good feedback and outcome measures, which I'm not going to be sharing with you today. But Yeah, it's been great workforce development work, and hopefully you have engaged with some of the professionals that have been a part of the ACT program. So ACT stands for Advanced Clinical Training. It's not very creative, but that's what you get when you try to do things quickly and try to launch during the pandemic. So my purpose for being here today is actually to talk to you about a proviso project that the Barnard Center is engaged in around workforce development. One of the things that we notice. Hi, Katie. Yes, absolutely. One of the things that we have found was that in our effort, I'm going to start sharing my screen here as well. Oh, do we have two things going? I'm confused.
I just pulled mine down.
Okay, thank you. All right. One of the things that we had noticed in the years, as at least for me, as we were continuing with the cohorts of the ACT program, was that infant and early childhood mental health has the beginnings of a footing. And what really excited me about coming to Washington State was that the multi-sector, the cross-sector leaders and individuals who are really interested in growing the work and growing the field on behalf of young children and families, with a particular eye on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So the work to address and dismantle systems of oppression is something that I do integratedly with the work that I was doing in Chicago as a faculty member at Erickson Institute. And so when this opportunity came up to design a professional development program from the ground up, to dream about how we might address it, that's what came in. That's what excited me about it. So when we got here, what we had noticed also, even though we were kind of on this, growth trajectory of trying to build an infant early childhood mental health workforce, was that there really wasn't a vision, a pathway on how we needed to grow it. What were the things that would help us to systematically move the field so that we can cover the breadth of services for young children and families, from promotion of relationships all the way through to intensive intervention services. So the proviso is really an effort to address that. We know that there's a lot of work from different agencies and divisions in DCYF, as well as other State Department and private work that has been done to look at the field and to gather information. And so we're not looking to try to duplicate anything, but really to try to put information together so that we can present to the legislature some strategies that we're thinking about in terms of what's necessary to continue to build the field in this way. I'm also involved in the P5 subgroup, early relational health subgroup, which is a part of the Children and Youth Behavioral Health work group. And part of this is also coming and stemming from that work as well. So the proviso, which we have now named the people-powered workforce, because we really feel like that the workforce it should be driven by the individuals that do this work. And we define the field of infant early childhood mental health very broadly. It's generally anybody who has who supports or touches the lives of young children and families, and support their relationships from that breadth of promotion all the way to intensive intervention. Okay, so the purpose of it is to create a cohesive approach to expand, diversify, train, and retain an infant early childhood mental health workforce. Again, the broad definition that I just shared with you, so that families and children prenatal through 5 receive relationship-centered, diversity-informed, culturally responsive, anti-racist, anti-oppressive, healing forward, which is language that really says it's trauma-informed, right? We're always thinking about how do we move towards the healing process for the relationship between the child and the caregiver, and developmentally focused services. So the proviso received $250,000 from the state to engage in this kind of fact-finding discovery type of process And so you'll be able to find this publicly available. But just so you know that it's rooted in public funds, so that public funds will be able to help us to continue to move this forward. And the result of it will be a report back to public entities around what we find and discover. So we define infant early childhood mental health, not the workforce, but what infant early childhood mental health is, as the developing capacity for a young child, for children in general, this is birth to 5, to form close and secure adult relationships with their caregivers, adults, and peers, which will also support them to experience, express, and then manage or regulate their emotions. Because we know that we learn best when we are not dysregulated, when we are in a good, calm space. And to explore the environment and learn all of this within the context of family, community, and culture. And when we speak about culture, we of course have to take into consideration that systems of oppression like racism, sexism, classism, etc., are a part of our culture. It has become a part of the way that we see, understand, and potentially do things that might perpetuate systems of oppression, and or if we're intentional, push back or just try to dismantle systems of oppression. And I already shared how we define the workforce broadly. So our 4 key areas, as I kind of alluded to earlier, are to think about the expansion of the field, the workforce, to diversify the workforce, to train the workforce, and to retain the workforce. We know that different areas and fields within the broader infant early childhood mental health field provide different kinds of training and education. So some of us might already have child development education and an understanding about the milestones and the what to expect at different ages for young children, which for what we know, how we define milestones in child development is also rooted in ableism. And so we want to also keep that in mind, right? That there's an aspect to even the way that we know and understand some of the information in our field might actually we might need to revisit and re-understand what might be happening there, especially if we want to consider the diversification of the field so that we can support families who come from the full range of diversity of cultures and ethnicities and other areas in the world, and those who might present with individual differences like sensory sensitivities and neurodiversity, etc. So as we think about and begin to think about the expansion, diversification, the training, and the retaining of the field, we wanted to go back to the workforce and actually ask them what that might be like. Retention, as you all might know, is a big issue right now. I think almost in every sector, we are experiencing a shortage of professionals to support young children and families, or we're experiencing high turnover in some of those sectors and some of those fields and some of those industries. And so we want to be thinking broadly about how systemically we can support the workforce so that we are not, the turnover isn't there, and we've come to understand turnover from like burnout and secondary traumatic stress and vicarious trauma as actually being a part of a trauma experience for those professionals. How do we help systems hold the experiences of professionals, especially when they're doing really difficult work, so that they're not expected to use their own time and money to heal from the work that they're engaged in, but that the systems actually is supporting them in the healing process because they're being exposed to trauma in the workplace. Connected to that diversification, if we're bringing individuals, people of color and people who are coming from communities targeted for oppression, there's already trauma in existence, oppressive trauma that's already there. How do we think about how our systems might be perpetuating some of those systems of oppression, and how can systems begin to rethink the way that we're structured and the way that we do things so that individuals who come from communities targeted for oppression who have been identified within particular racial groups, gender identity groups, etc., won't experience oppressive trauma within the workplace as well. Okay. So we began the process by pulling in a group of people, and we are utilizing liberatory design as our framework to be thinking about how we want to engage in this process of collecting information. Some of you may be familiar with this. If you're not familiar with it, these are some of the principles for within the liberatory design process and practice: generating self-awareness to liberate designers, to shift the relationship between people who hold power to design and those impacted, to foster learning and agency for those involved and influenced by the design work, and to create conditions for collective liberation. So we actually spent quite a lot of time, one, learning about one another, building relationships with one another, understanding where we feel that we hold power and privilege, and where we might feel that oftentimes that we might not be able to step in. And so we're there together as a community to support one another to step into those spaces where all of our voices is really valued in the design process. So these, there's 2 pages, so this is not the entire team. So these individuals represent both the steering committee as well as the design committee, and who we're trying to bring in pretty diverse perspectives and experiences and voices. So we have individuals that represent state agencies, as well as those who engage in direct service practice, those who engage in administrative work, who identify as clinicians, who identify as researchers, et cetera. So we have a pretty broad range of individuals. We're being led by Susan Barbeau, who is a consultant on the project, as is organizing the process along the way for us. So as you can see here, that we are trying to pull in individuals based on some of the work. Of course, I'm a part of the Barnard Center, so we have Barnard Center individuals who are on the team, and Joyce Yang is the logistics manager, both for the ACT program as well as for this Proviso project. So our timeline spans, we began our work in July of 2024. So we've been going for a while, and we'll end the work when our report is due to the legislators in June of 2025. And as you can see here, we are currently in the October to December timeframe of 2024, which is the listening and brainstorming session that we're now beginning to engage in. You may have seen some emails gone out asking if those individuals who are both direct service providers as well as administrators who might be interested in sharing your experiences, your stories around your movement into the field, your movement to stay in or your stories about staying in the field or potentially leaving the field and then coming back. We want to hear all of the challenges as well as the things that have supported you through the process, both individually as well as systemically, relationally, everything that you want to share, how you understand the experiences being related to your identities, to your circumstances, to your social location. We want to know it and hear it all, because we believe that legislators need to understand that people's lived experiences and how they exist in the world is a part of their professional experience, and it impacts them in the workplace. So as we want to move forward, we need to move forward keeping in mind that identity, social location, and circumstances will inform how workforces are built, how they're sustained, and how we can continue to grow that workforce. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, we're looking for direct service providers, directors, administrators, and then some systems partners. So we're looking at focus groups that will involve about 100 participants for direct service providers. Those individuals will engage in two-hour sessions, or a total of 4 hours. And we're looking at currently 8 groups of focus groups. Each person will be compensated at a rate of $50 per hour. So over the course of the 2 groups, about $200 for participation. I will show you in a second some of the groups that are available, because we did keep in mind the need for affinity groups, especially for groups that have that come from communities targeted for oppression and have been mostly impacted by those systems of oppression. Directors and administrators were looking to engage 50 participants, 2-hour focus groups sessions, and 1 sessions for those. And we're looking at about 5 groups. And then systems partners will be interviewing both individuals as well as teams. So let me quick do a, hold on, let me go back. Okay. Quick share of, oh, I can't see it. Here we go. Can everybody see the web page okay? Okay. You can get to this at peoplepoweredworkforce.org. Copy, chat. There we go. And if this is the home page, and if you go down, you can register for your focus groups here. And for each of the focus groups, for direct service providers will be there first. There's a description there, how to register. And currently we have all 8 groups that are listed. So groups 1, 2, and 3 are all open groups, meaning that anybody can register for those groups. You'll see dates and times that are listed there. The 2 groups are separate. We hope that it's between a week and 2 weeks between the first session and the second session. The first session is specifically geared towards listening to your stories. And we have some prompts and questions for those. And then the second group is really to brainstorm. What does it look like, or what would it look like for you if you could dream it, to expand, to diversify, to train, and to retain from your field, from your perspective, from your work areas. We also then have affinity groups for individuals who are tribal members. Those will, they're kind of by invitation. Individuals who are interested in being invited for that should contact the facilitators. The facilitators themselves are actually outreaching to those individuals as well. And then there's an affinity group for male identified providers. And then for BIPOC providers, more broadly, anybody who identifies as a Black, Indigenous, or person of color. I see your hand, Allison, so give me a second and I'll get to you. Group 7 is an open one. Group 8 is an affinity group for Spanish-speaking bilingual professionals. And then group 9, I think we said 8, but there are 9. Group 9 is for Black African-American affinity group. And again, that will also be they're still working on the recruitment process on that one. Okay, Allison, your question.
Hi, so my question was, if you go down, then there's one that's just for administrative people. And so there isn't the specific groups for the affinity groups or BIPOC or any of those under administration. So I was wondering then, would I be able to participate in the administrative one plus the one that's specific for Indigenous, or just trying to understand that?
That's a great question, and I think that if you feel the best space for that for you to be able to share your stories is to be in an affinity group, I would reach out to participate in either an Indigenous group or a BIPOC group, whichever one you're most comfortable with.
But my question was, then would I just choose one of those, or would I choose an administrator plus one of those?
You'll actually have the opportunity to share. The questions will actually be very similar. And you'll have the opportunity to share in pretty much the same way in the other group. This is I can bring this actually back to the group to consider as a part of the design process, and if additional affinity groups might be necessary for the administrative focus groups. So you're bringing up a very good one. But for right now, I would look at the affinity group if that is the space that you feel most comfortable sharing. What we're interested in here is providing as relationally safe of a space as possible for you to speak whatever it is that you need to speak without feeling like you have to mask, like you have to filter in ways that that could potentially be harmful to you. And so we don't want you in a space that's going to not facilitate open sharing. But I will bring this back to the group and to consider affinity groups for the administrators as well. That sound okay to you, Allison? Okay. So as mentioned, the affinity groups, the administrator groups then come next. There's a group specifically for behavioral health, for ESIT, for home visiting, and then 2 open groups that is open to other any administrators from other sectors, or if you're not able to make one of the affinity groups for the other conversations, the behavioral health, ESIT, or home visiting, that's available. Okay. So this is the QR code. If you go to our website, you can also sign up for our mailing list, and that way you'll receive emails if you aren't already signed up, emails updating you about what's happening next. We also encourage you to send this out to direct service providers that you might know of who would be interested in sharing information, in telling their stories about their workforce about their own training and development in the field, and what it is that they are looking for or needing as ways of supporting them. Even though we're doing focus groups, we're also recording the focus groups, but everybody's identities will not be utilized in the analysis and reporting out. We actually won't even be keeping track of it's impossible actually for us to connect who's saying what within those particular groups. So we'll be taking those stories, but that's why we have also the affinity groups, because we want to ensure that we do have, that we can identify some of the voices from particular groups of individuals who may have shared experiences in that way. I'll open up for questions, comments, thoughts from you all at this point in time. Okay. Nellie, I just want to ask you a quick question, because when you were doing the introduction,